A new report from Reporters Without Borders is warning that Europe's publicly funded media could soon be facing funding threats. Its findings come hard on the heels of moves in the U.S. to limit public broadcasters. Congress recently passed a bill stripping media organizations of all taxpayer funding, which is part of a broader package of budget cuts. NPR and PBS will now lose more than $1 billion in public money. National Public Radio Chief Katherine Maher called it a dismantling of civil institutions. And a new report suggests that Europe's publicly funded media could face a similar fate unless action is taken. Let's talk about that with Thibaut Bruttin. He is the Director General at Reporters Without Borders and joins us now from Paris. Welcome to DW and thank you for your time. So we're hearing here that public broadcasters are under threat. There are some who might say, so what? They're too expensive anyway. Why do you think that they need to be saved?
I think it's important to remind people what is the ethos of public service media. They are the home of pluralism, of quality journalism, of investigation in many countries, and they have this specific duty towards the public. So yes, we can discuss their policies and programs, definitely, and even more so because they are owned by the public. But some of the attacks against them are very harsh and not related to the actual behavior of the broadcaster. So we need to distinguish between the weaponization of the assault on public service media and the necessary rebuilding of public service media in the future.
So then break that down for us. What is the biggest challenge or the biggest challenges for European public broadcasters at the moment?
There are two challenges. The first one is obviously the question of governance and how it can be instrumentalized to serve the interest of the ruling party or the government. And the second is the question of the funding. And for very good, legitimate, management and financial management reasons, sometimes there are strong decisions made against public broadcasters and campaign led against them. But we need to find, and that is the goal of the European Media Freedom Act, which is coming into effect on August 8th, to try and create a system that enable for the broadcasters to remain independent, both in governance and funding.
You have warned that financial reform is sometimes used as a cover, actually, for political control. How can it be distinguished between necessary reform and manipulation? And maybe you can just provide, some cases that you're seeing.
So obviously there is a momentum in current media history with the Trump administration. And the way Donald Trump is trying to fuel the hunger of the public towards the public broadcaster is totally unprecedented. Because he's trying to kill journalism in the United States, he's obviously trying to say that the public service broadcasters are fat cats that need to be, skinned. And that is not, what facts prove. The budgets of public broadcasters in lots of countries are actually, reduced under pressure. There is a concern that in the geopolitical and political moment that we're living through, that even the size of the public broadcaster is not big enough. So we need to distinguish between people that have an agenda and people that actually want the best for the public service media.
How should public broadcasters be positioning right now? And is there a point in having that many public broadcasters on the continent? I mean, or should there be more of a European approach?
So RSF is very concerned with the geopolitical mistake made by the Trump administration of trying to stop the broadcasting of Radio Free Europe and Voice of America. That is why we consider that it's about time that the EU try and build a coalition of public service broadcasters working toward the outer world. It's very important that national broadcasters strengthen each other, and we have the EBU from that, the European Broadcasting Union. But we can also imagine something bigger in terms of broadcasting towards Eastern Europe, towards the Federation of Russia. And Deutsche Welle, France Média Monde, the French counterpart of Deutsche Welle, and Radio Free Europe should really partner in that regard, because there is much to be done, very much at stake. And we need to have a coalition and alignment of programs and views.
And it's interesting because your report, it calls for a sharp European awakening. I'm curious, because in less than a month, the European Media Freedom Act is coming into force. How do you see that factoring into the dynamics in the media landscape? Is it going to improve things?
It is meant to improve things, and the deadline of August 8, which is the date where the EMFA will come into effect, is a deadline that will not be met by many member states within the EU. That is hugely problematic, and we still have a kind of appreciation of this legislation, which is prevalent in many member states. And this appreciation is that the EMFA was designed so as to address the challenges of the media and journalism within Central Europe, where it's very much under attack. But every member state has to look into its own policies and regulation, and there is no member state that is having such a great regulatory framework that they don't need to revise or review it. So we're calling on every EU member states to look into the national legislation and try to find ways to improve the situation, to guarantee also for the future, obviously, the independence and the stability of the funding of the broadcasters, but also more generally, try to address the many articles of the EMFA, which is a good, strong framework to look into the policies in every EU member state.
Thibaut Bruttin, Director General at Reporters Without Borders. Thank you.
Thank you.